Hello.
Hello! Good evening, children. Welcome
To Something Old, Something New, the podcast where we choose two films, one old, one new, that have something in common.
What that is? Well, you're just gonna have to stick around, why don't ya?
Okay.
Okay.
You're gonna watch my new movies, okay?
By the way, this is Salome.
And this is David.
And like we said, welcome to our podcast. I'm actually really excited for this one.
Yes, so am I. What are the films that we're... Well, they already know what the films are when they click on it.
No. Do they? Do they really? No.
I hope so.
Actually, no. I finally got to watch a movie that I've never watched before, and one that was just in theaters. So if you guys haven't watched it, you definitely should go and check it out. So, David, please let us know what those movies are.
The films that we're comparing today, something old, something new, is Reservoir Dogs in 1992 and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, 2019. Now, what both films have in common is, if you couldn't already tell, okay, they're both directed by me, Quentin Tarantino, okay? I'm the best writer, director in all of cinema, okay?
I mean, we'll talk about it a little bit later on in the podcast, but I will agree with that statement based on the movie I saw in theaters just recently. I love this movie. I really love this movie.
And what's so fascinating about it is that we're taking his first film, Reservoir Dogs, and we're comparing it and contrasting it with his latest film, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And the thing is that Tarantino has said that when he reaches his 10th film, although you can argue, well, wait a minute, isn't it already past his 10th film? Because Kill Bill, there were two, but he counts this as one. I count it as two. But beyond the point,
Don't argue with the artist, David.
He stated that when he reaches his 10th film, that's it. But depending on the reaction of this film, maybe this would be his last film. So who knows? Maybe this is his last film.
And this is the one time I will say I don't want it to be his last film. I mean, again, and we will get back. We'll get into that in a bit. I've never really seen a Tarantino film until I got with you, honestly.
Yes.
So it's like I heard about his movies. I've heard about a lot of the certain dialogue things, choices that he makes that I don't necessarily agree with. But so when you told me that we're going to watch Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I was like, oh God. I mean, I know we watched Hateful Eight. That was the title of the movie, right? Hateful
Yes,
Eight.
we saw that in theaters, actually.
We saw that in theaters. It was very long.
It's a 70 millimeter print.
And I mean, I can't argue. It's a beautiful movie. He knows how to make a film, for sure. But there's just something about it that it never really connects with me. It never really does until this movie. When I say I love this movie, I will go far enough to say that for me, I think this is the best film I've seen so far all year. I love this movie. What's another word for love? Encanto esta película, guys. Like, I really do. Tell us a little bit more about the movies, David. So, like, they're both directed by Tarantino. I can never say his first name.
Both directed and written by Quentin Tarantino.
I'm just going to call Tarantino.
And the plots of both films are that, and Reservoir Dogs, in that case, it's about a bank heist that goes awry, and they believe that there is an informant in their midst. And that, of course, causes a lot of tension. And throughout the film, you get to see what happens leading up to it. You get to see the history of characters such as Mr. White, played by Harvey Keitel, Mr. Blonde, played by Michael Madsen, and Mr. Orange, played by Tim Roth. Yeah. And you also get to see a wonderful little sequence of Mr. Pink, played by scene-stealing Steve Buscemi.
Yeah, he was really good.
He was great in that. And Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is set over the course of 3 days in Los Angeles, California.
It was
Hollywood.
3 days?
3 days. Well, you got the 2 days, and then about
the main day, right?
About 6 or 7 months later in the narrative, it fast forwards to August 9th, 1969.
Okay, so basically, now I remember, because you kind of threw me off for a second, because I was like, I could have sworn this movie was based in a day, but no, now I get what you mean.
And it's about the lives of 3 actors. You have one played by Leonardo DiCaprio, that's Rick Dalton. Then you have Cliff Booth, who's played by Brad Pitt, who is the stuntman and best friend of Rick Dalton. And then you have Sharon Tate, played by Margot Robbie, who is an up-and-coming star.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah, and you get to experience all that. And of the two, you would say that, to compare and contrast, because Tarantino has, whether you like his work or not, he has a very distinct voice. He truly does.
He definitely has a style when he comes to the films, which is the one consistent thing I did love about his films. The one reason why I can't be like, "Ugh, I'm never going to watch a Tarantino film again." But like, keep going. But yeah, he has a very distinct style of filmmaking and how to tell a story, which I respect. I really do love the way he does it.
Oh, yeah. And in this case, where in his first film, it is more along the lines, if both films were, if you had to compare which is the one that has more of a plot, Reservoir Dogs definitely does more so than Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where it's more along the lines of, it feels more like a day in the life, where you get to experience what Rick Dalton experiences, what Cliff experiences,
Well,
what
I
Sharon
would say with
experiences.
Reservoir Dogs, it's the same thing, though. I mean, like,
Well, yeah, you do, but the thing is about Tarantino's is that there are plots in them, but Tarantino is more focused on the characters and how they interact with one another, and how and also what they talk about. Like, one of the most famous, and it's often parodied, is in Pulp Fiction, the whole quarter pounder with cheese dialogue in when they're driving, when Vincent and Jules are driving to go get the briefcase. And also eventually end up, murdering the people who took it.
Yeah.
And it's often criticized, like, oh, what's the point of this? This is silly. It's ridiculous. This is, movie dialogue used to be better than this. But what they're not getting at is that these are two hitmen who are on the way to go and do this job, potentially and ultimately do take lives. And the thing about it is that they are talking normally. It sucks you into the dialogue because it's also funny, but you're realizing, oh, wait a minute, I'm getting interested in the conversation of two men who we will find out happen to be hitmen.
Yeah, we're talking about the very beginning of the movie, right?
In
like
Pulp Fiction,
it was to the Like a Virgin song.
Oh, well, now that's how I get to Reservoir Dogs. What's funny, the very first film by Quentin Tarantino's, whose voice do you hear?
Madonna.
Nope.
Oh, wait, sorry. Sorry.
No, it's Tarantino himself.
I'm like, Madonna.
Nope.
No, you're right. I'm sorry. You're talking about the characters. I was thinking about the song. I'm sorry.
No, it's Mr. Tarantino, where he has a dialogue where he talks about what like a virgin truly means.
Which, okay, and before we really get into that, like, because of that, I felt that he has such a great way of introducing his characters.
Yes.
Like you said, it sucks you in so quickly. Because I remember, like, when that scene, like, I mean, obviously the beginning scene, when it first came up, I was like, wait, what the hell? And I started laughing because I didn't know what the heck was going on. And I was like, wait, what is this movie about? Because I didn't really look into it. Like I said, I'm not really a big Tarantino fan. I don't really dive deep into movies usually. Like, you've kind of helped me, like, really do that and stuff. But so I didn't really know what this movie was about. I just knew the general plot line, very general plot line. So when that came up, I was like, wait, what the heck? But I just couldn't stop listening to them. I couldn't, like, who are these people? Like, they're actually people, not just hitmen. Like, these people actually have lives. We're watching and again, we'll go back to it in a bit, like, the whole, like, background from the main attraction, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Or it's like the thing, what I like about Tarantino, like comparing to what he was as a filmmaker then and how he is now, because also Reservoir Dogs had a very small budget. I think he had a budget around $1 million or $2 million.
Yeah.
Well, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was close to $100 million. That's a big, gigantic leap in a chunk of change. But how he introduces the characters, because not just the like a virgin speech, but also when they're about to leave and they're, okay, everybody pony up money for the tip. And Mr. Pink doesn't tip, and he just tells everybody why he doesn't do so.
Oh, God,
And also, but it's what's great about it is that with Mr. Pink, it establishes who he is, but then how the other characters react to him, Mr. White and Mr. Orange, Mr. Blonde, what have you, and how they react to him, they also inform us, the audience, what type of people they are. So then with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, now he's got a bigger budget, and now you get to see it. It starts with this beautifully recreated black and white footage, as if you are watching an old interview program that I believe it took place in either the 50s, if not early 60s. And just how you introduce the dynamic between Rick and Cliff, where Rick is, you can tell this is a guy who is really sensitive in terms of wanting to be loved and appreciated.
Yeah.
And Cliff is more laid back in his
Brad
approach.
Pitt's character, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And you just get that sense of that dynamic where it's like, and it's just
like,
so
he doesn't
interesting
give a
about it.
shit
He
about
doesn't.
being accepted or not.
But think about it though.
Yeah.
If he acts that way, but then why would he want to keep being friends with Rick? And that's what's so fascinating about it, because they're outcasts.
Yeah, I think it's like at the end of the day, like even though this guy, like he will do whatever the fuck he wants. Like he does not give a motherfucking shit.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, it shows that his kindness purely comes from the fact that he is a kind person.
Mm-hmm.
Just because he doesn't give a shit doesn't mean he's not kind and doesn't care about people, which is a huge contrast to other characters, like that's about greed and just about themselves and
Mm-hmm.
like the way they portrayed Bruce Lee in this movie.
Oh yeah.
Like that's what I got from his character in that one. I'm like, oh my god, self-centered much? But it was really funny.
But just the mistakes they make that I find interesting, where it's like with Rick that, and this is like it's not featured in the film, but it goes into one of the other things, and that's Tarantino loves working with his actors and helping creating these backstories for them. So with Tarantino and DiCaprio, they created that backstory for Rick Dalton, where he is an undiagnosed sufferer of bipolar disorder, and the thing about him is that he ends up coping it with copious amounts of alcohol.
Yeah.
And you just see him as he breaks down, and it's really it's both simultaneously funny, but it's also incredibly sad.
And what's really interesting about that though, like they never really mentioned the whole like undiagnosed bipolar disorder in the movie. Like I think they mentioned that in an interview, right? If I'm not mistaken. Okay.
Yeah.
But even though it wasn't shown in the movie, you can tell that there's something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Like whether it's like anger issues or just like a mental issue or something like that. And I really loved the way that was handled for it being comedic in a way, but it was something very heartfelt. And I not only will give credit to Tarantino for like, all that, the movie, the writing and all that stuff, but Leonardo DiCaprio, and specifically one scene, and I think you know which scene I'm talking about, the one after like when he's in his trailer by himself, and he's having his like full on mental breakdown.
That's what I was mentioning, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, oh my God. Y'all, if you didn't love Leo before, I'm just all saying that. Like, he's just, I know, like, the heartfelt just emotion of I can't even talk. Like, I don't even know what to tell you. Like, it's so good.
Like, what was, like, so fascinating about the scene is, like, it goes between that thin line between the drama and the comedy, where you're laughing at this man breaking down, but then there's a moment that occurs, and this is one thing that has been consistent throughout Tarantino's films.
Yeah.
And that is he'll take a moment where you feel, oh, this is a funny scene or what have you, and then suddenly a turn occurs where then you go, oh my God.
Yeah.
It's Scorsese in particular. I have to mention where Scorsese is a master of this as well, where you might be like laughing at something like, oh, look at these idiots. But then suddenly you realize he brings you back home and go, there are other people involved here. There are innocent people here. And in this case with DiCaprio breaking down, ultimately you get that feeling this is a man who is sick. And this is a man who is incredibly sad.
It's like, it's not really like, it's definitely a roller coaster of emotions, like with everything. And let's talk about the way Tarantino directs the scene, because little fun trivia fact, guys, with Reservoir Dogs, when it premiered on, was it Sundance? I can't remember where it was.
Yes.
That people actually ended up walking out, including Rick Baker, I believe, was it?
The multi-Oscar winning makeup artist, Rick Baker, who did the makeup for American Werewolf in London and The Wolfman. So this is a man who is used to his gore and splatter.
Yeah, so like he walked out.
And speaking of gore and splatter,
I lost the name.
Wes
Craven, yes. And they walked out because they felt uncomfortable how realistic the scenes were.
Yep.
And this is why I love Tarantino. And David, you know how much I hate gore. I hate gory movies. I hate blood. I hate when blood is used for no reason whatsoever, just for the sake of being gory and bloody.
Yes.
And at first glance, you'll think that Tarantino does that. But he doesn't. He makes you, it hits you in the gut. Like, a scene will just, let's say, this doesn't happen in the movie, but like, let's say someone's leg is slashed open and the camera's just on it, right? And it takes a little bit too long to move away. It just stays there. So you start getting a little squirmish, a little bit squeamish. You're like, okay, dude,
actually,
move,
he
move.
did do a scene kind of similar.
Oh, did he?
He did a scene, and she has not seen the film yet, in Glorious Bastards, that does involve a leg and a wound that is really uncomfortable. Since she hasn't seen it yet, I will not spoil the rest.
I'm gonna forget it. It's okay.
But there is a scene where like that happening where it lingers on the violence.
Yeah, and because of the fact that it lingers, it makes it so much more realistic, and it really takes you to the human experience in a whole new level that I don't believe that many movies really do anymore. And it's like the awkward. Oh, especially also in Reservoir Dogs, like there was this one scene when I forgot the character's name, but he got shot, and they were lying in like factory. I don't know where the fuck. They were,
with
honestly.
Mr. Orange when he because at the beginning of the film, and it's like there's spoilers that are going to be prevalent throughout the this episode.
Of course,
after the initial dialogue sequence in Reservoir Dogs, I think it's like within the 10-15 minutes of the film, you get to see the one after effect of the bank heist gone awry, and that is Mr. Orange was shot, and he's a bloody mess, and Mr. White is trying to keep awake, like it's okay, you're okay, and once again, the acting where it's just allowing these two, Keitel, who's trying to keep calm, but he himself is also personally freaking out because he got shot, but he's got to keep his eye on the road, and of course Mr. Orange is freaking out because he just got shot.
Yeah, but like it lingers, and the scene takes longer than what someone would normally say necessary. But it became unnecessary, but then it kept going longer that it became necessary again.
Yeah.
That it just allowed you to see at a moment where in movies, you see someone going, I'm shot, dead, whatever, right? But this one just
Especially
lingers.
the pooping.
Yeah, like, but no, that actually would be a point. Like, it lingers to the pain that happens after the scene is cut. You know what I mean? Like, if this was shut up, Dave. Like, if this was a real scene, like in the real life, they're not in pain for just a minute or so on screen. They're still in pain afterwards. And that's what Tarantino shows.
Yeah, that's what I show. Okay, I like people suffering when they die and they poop their pants. I want them to suffer in their poop. Okay. But no, that is true. Just in particular, the sequence in Reservoir Dogs, the infamous stuck in the middle with you sequence where Mr. Blonde is torturing the police officer that they have. He cuts off his ear, and he gets the gasoline and all, and just it goes to show you like how good he is with the scene. Is there's a moment where the camera follows Mr. Blonde as he goes out, and you could hear the music in the location, but then it goes fainter, then you no longer hear it. But now you hear him walking on the gravel, and the sounds of children playing as he goes to open up the trunk and get the gasoline. You still hear it gets closer, and then suddenly the noise becomes loud again, which leads me to a little bit of film grammar, and that is
film grammar time.
We are talking diegetic sound, and we're also talking about, of course, diegetic music and incidental music. Now, what that is diegetic sound, diegetic music, is that it's part of the setting, and that is the characters can hear it. While incidental music, it's music that's not heard by the characters. It's used to underscore the scene. Or sometimes what Tarantino does very often, and you see it in his movies, especially in Reservoir Dogs and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, is you will hear the music on the soundtrack. So you hear a song playing, and that starts off as incidental music, like maybe Little Green Bag in Reservoir Dogs, or Mrs. Robinson in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Which, by the way, like in the film, like if you guys know Reservoir Dogs, and I think in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, there was no score music. It was all actual music that was already made, like a soundtrack music.
Correct.
It's
so all primarily soundtrack.
Which helps, like when it comes to the realism and what you were saying right now.
Yeah. And not just the realism, but it also helps set up the tone of those movies by using these songs, like how Scorsese would use the songs as well, or later on folks like Wes Anderson would use specific songs to be able to influence the films, their work. But what Tarantino would do is you would hear like Little Green Bag on the soundtrack while the characters are walking, and then suddenly the music then becomes slightly faint, and then you realize that now this incidental music is now diegetic music because the song Little Green Bag is playing on the radio as Mr. White and Mr. Orange are driving off. And that is just, it's a wonderful little tool to help get the audience, not only do you hear the music, but get them absorbed in the scene. Then suddenly it becomes part of the scene. It becomes music that the characters listening, and it puts you right there with the characters as if you're there. Even though technically you're not, because if it was, then you'd have the camera would then be your point of view.
Yeah.
But it's just a very fascinating way of getting people sucked in. But that's diegetic sound music and incidental music, which Tarantino is one of those filmmakers who does a fantastic job of.
He really does, and I think
both.
that's why his movies do stick with you. Oh, at least with these two movies, they really did stick with me because of the soundtrack.
Mm-hmm.
It's because it kind of helps you become kind of like a surrogate a little bit for like it makes you feel connected because you've heard this music outside of watching this film before, like in your own lives, and somehow by using that kind of music, it helps you get connected with it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it makes you feel a part of the film, a part of the universe.
Yeah.
And I never thought that music can, at least in a movie, can connect you that way so much.
Mm-hmm.
I freaking loved it. He's just brilliant.
Yeah,
like, thought it was great.
Because the thing is that when it comes to filmmaking, that in my opinion, that there are little happy accidents that occur where like for example the scene in Last Picture Show where when Ben Johnson recounts a memory and it's on a cloudy day, but then suddenly the sun comes out and hits his face,
Mm-hmm.
and then as the camera moves in and the camera moves out, then it becomes cloudy again. It's like that's a happy accident, but it helps it become more memorable because it's if that memory is hitting him and the light, and it's like it kind of makes it appear as if he's a younger man. It's beyond that. There aren't many of those type of accidents. That things are meant for a reason. So when and especially with Tarantino, because he will choose specific angles. Because I would go through his scripts. That I do have a couple copies of some of his screenplays,
Mm-hmm.
and he would note the type of camera angles that he would
really?
want. Yes, yeah. Usually in screenwriting.
Uh-huh.
You don't typically do that. It's one of those where it's like you let the reader come up with it, but since Tarantino, he himself as both writer and director, he writes that and keeps it to himself. He knows that he can write that and influence how he's going to make the film.
Yeah.
But he does that. He's very particular. So he has those for a reason because he wants you to feel a certain way.
Yeah, like you're part of
songs.
it. Like I feel like his like certain scenes, the way it's shot, it's not overly complicated, and I like that. There's some directors or whatever that try to make a scene so over the top with the camera angles and the way it's shot that it ruins a beautiful scene.
Mm-hmm.
That it actually could potentially ruin a movie. And I mean, Tarantino, he has a really great style of making you feel like you're there with them. And even like if there's a lot of camera cuts, it's for a reason. It makes you feel like part of the chaos that's happening on screen. And it doesn't take away from it, which I do like. Some movies end up ruining that.
And speaking of the visual style, like to compare of who he was as a filmmaker in 1992 versus 2019.
Yeah.
It's like obviously with a bigger budget, he's able to do more, shots that he wanted to do in the days of Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, and I'll throw Jackie Brown in there too.
Yeah.
That the one thing that hasn't changed is that he loves long takes. He loves those scenes of people of dialogue or just like or his usage of because he has used a scope as the aspect ratio for his films, and that's how he uses that to be able to create tension with the characters, maybe to create a distance between the characters.
It's the this awkwardness that I love, that those long shots. Then again, it goes into what I said before, that it just stays there and it becomes awkward and real. Like it becomes human-like. And in other movies, it's so overused. So freaking overused! But I love this one.
Yeah, that it's like that. Yeah, I understand because there are some people that the long takes where where once that they were seen as like trying to outdo the other. Oh, you like that one long take? Check this one out. Well, what about this one and this one? That I have noticed there's been a bit of a backlash against certain long takes. Though I guess the ones that are a little bit more obvious and called to attention that they are long takes. But Tarantino, as a filmmaker, when it comes to his long takes, that he's able to help generate the tension, maybe create new information, and this is what I love because his love of cinema comes out in his filmmaking, just the love of movies. Yeah. Especially when Robert Richardson became his cinematographer beginning with the Kill Bill films, and except for the Death Proof segment of Grindhouse, he has been his director of photography for all of his feature-length films.
Including Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
Yep, so
Beautifully
there he was
done.
and the thing about
Wait, was he in Reservoir Dogs as well then?
as a cinematographer? No, he wasn't.
Okay.
No, but
You can see that. Oh, yeah, you can see that.
yeah, with Robert Richardson though, he is a multi-Academy Award-winning cinematographer. He's one of my personal favorite cinematographers. He's won Oscars for Oliver Stone's JFK, and that's another healthy collaboration where he did the cinematography for Platoon, Born on the 4th of July, and also wonderful work on Natural Born Killers. And, I mean, when it comes to how he uses color in that film, and also his other two films were for Martin Scorsese movies, The Aviator and Hugo, where once again both films utilize not just wonderful sweet, because you can tell with Richardson that he's able to adapt to Oliver Stone style, to Scorsese style, to Tarantino style. But you still get that. You still know that Richardson is the cinematographer in those films because of his use of color, in terms of how he moves the camera. That he's a really brilliant cinematographer who definitely belongs up there with the best current cinematographers, like Roger Deakins and Emmanuel Lubezki.
Yeah, the cinematography in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was outstanding. It's so. I mean, if you guys don't know, I used to live in California, and the movie is primarily it's shot in LA, and the way that it's shot, I even turned to David afterwards. I was like, I remember when I used to drive around those hills at night, with my friends, when we would just we just like to house watch. We just drive around and see all the fancy houses and all that stuff, But the way that it's shot, it just brings you back to certain memories, even if memories that you didn't even have, that you just felt like you were part of it, part of this family, part of this this world.
There's a wistfulness to
yes.
it. It feels like a postcard at times.
Yes, and I actually was going to say with the colors, especially in that one scene when they went to that abandoned lot or shooting studio, whatever.
Oh, that's when it went to Spawn Ranch.
Spawn Ranch, thank you. Yeah,
that
when you said
horror sequence.
Oh my god, I love that sequence. Oh, Brad Pitt, I love you. Just saying. But no, when you said postcard, actually visually, that's what it reminds me of. And I don't mean that in a bad way. There's something very eerie. If you got a postcard of Spawn Ranch of how it looked right there in that movie, there's something very eerie about it. But it's like just something that you would only see in a picture, but you're there.
Yeah.
And Brad Pitt, I love you. I'm sorry, I can't stop thinking of that scene. It's so good.
Well, yeah, just speaking about how he creates tension and such, where actually when Tarantino, when he was watching the dailies with his editor, and the editor told him, "You made a horror film. This looks like Texas Chainsaw Massacre," and that helped influence how the scene was going to be paced in terms of the cuts and such, because it does feel like a horror film that you are watching, that you did step into Texas Chainsaw Massacre territory. And gosh, it's keeps me on the edge of my seat when watching that film. But the other thing, thinking about when it came to the cinematography, because I mentioned how he won his Oscar for JFK, one of his Oscars for JFK, is that in JFK he uses a lot of film stock, several different types of film stock, color, black and white, different aspect ratios all over the map. And his technical prowess shows in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where there are recreated scenes of old television shows that are lovingly recreated through Robert Richardson's cinematography. So with Tarantino, that it's like you do with the cinematography, it is still there when I saw it, but there is a lot of fun in his cinematography that he has with a bigger budget. I remember a sequence in Kill Bill where they go to Oren Ishii's and they have the camera follow all the characters, and the camera is moving around and checking all the characters from above, and how the camera moves. And it's it feels like you are on a little bit of a roller coaster, because Tarantino loves cinema. And you get that. And the thing is that a lot of folks don't care for that, and I can definitely understand that. But for me, it gets to that point to where what might be coming off as annoying to other people becomes very infectious to me as an audience goer. As a moviegoer, that his movies they just suck you in.
They do. I mean, just every scene, the way that it, man.
I mean, the other thing, I was thinking about when it comes to the films, is that we have to. You did mention this, and I have to bring it in, and that is there's a certain word that Quentin Tarantino likes to use.
A lot.
It has become the elephant in the room, and that is.
I mean, we won't say it, but
we will say in this. We'll only say the N word.
Yes.
And it ain't nice.
It ain't nice in more ways than one.
Yep.
Yeah, in Reservoir Dogs, like I remember, like there was a few moments, and me and David, like we talked about it, where I literally said, "What the fuck? What's the point of you saying this?" And then like,
remember the scene, like when it first was uttered, by Mr. Pink. It was just like, okay, now we're not a bunch of, and he says it, and we go. Because I forgot he said it. And I was like, whoa.
And again, there was no point to it. There was no point to it. It doesn't bring anything to his character whatsoever. And I don't care if you're trying to establish a douchebag. You can establish a douchebag any other way than just using the N-word.
You mean like Fast Guy Eddie?
Yeah.
Well, and that's the character played by Chris
I still
Penn.
disagree with it, but whatever.
It's like one of those where when he said it, do I think that it should have been used at all? Not at all. But in the development of his character, because he's just this nasty piece of work who uses derogatory language towards other folks as well. But it just feels like it doesn't feel like it should
organic.
Have been used.
It shouldn't have. Like if you were showing that he was prejudiced towards people of color throughout the film, like with shoves or glares or whatever, then maybe I might have passed it. But there was none of that whatsoever. So the fact that and Tarantino, that this is my one of my only critiques is that by using that word for no reason whatsoever, you take us away from the film.
But I use that word because, you see, I know the people who use that word, okay, and there are people that I know in real life that use that word, okay.
Okay, that kind of sounds like saying, I know what I have black friends, I know what you mean. No, that's what it sounds like. Fuck off. But, I'm sorry. And that's one big reason why, I liked Reservoir. I liked the movie. I wouldn't watch it again, though. And that is one of the big reasons why. It's not so much because, obviously, I would never use the word or anything, but it takes away from it. It takes me. I can see your face right now.
Well, no, it's because I know what you're getting at.
It takes me out of the film, and then for 15 minutes, I'm sitting there why the fuck did he use that word for? Yeah. Where's this going? And then by the time I realize that I'm watching the movie, I get back into it, and then I'm like, okay, and then I forget about it until it happens again. And I'm like, dude, por favor, come on.
When it cuts to that scene with Mr. White and Mr. Orange, and I believe Fast Guy Eddie's in the car, and they're just throwing the N-word around, N-word, and it's well, at this point, oh, brother.
I couldn't, but
what was the joke when we were going to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
I told you, I'm going to walk out this theater if he does it. But I will say this, guys, he doesn't use the word. However, and as a Latina woman, as a first-generation Mexican-American, okay, he actually did a race joke where I freaking burst out laughing because for some reason, even though it was kind of unnecessary, for some reason, it did fit. It kind of fit also because it reminded us of what the era that we're in right now, but also when they were back in the day and they were in the presence of a Latino. So, I get the moment.
Is it the line that I'm thinking of?
He's like, you can't show emotions in front of Mexicans or something like that?
I think he said, it's like, come on, Rick, don't cry in front of the Mexicans.
Yeah.
In front of the Mexicans.
Which I started laughing. It was, it wasn't even, nothing like saying the N-word, but, it was showing a weird kind of off-handed racism where it's okay. I'm not saying it's okay, but, the kind of racism people think it's okay to pass as okay, if that makes any sense. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
it's kind of weird. I know there's a term for it, and I can't remember what term it was.
Because the thing is, when I was thinking about it, is that when he used that line, for me, the line worked was because I know that being married to you and how we talk about machismo in the Mexican community amongst men, and it's one of those words don't cry. That I took that as hey, man up,
don't cry.
Yeah, especially front of the Mexicans who are known for having machismo men.
And that's what I'm saying because the way that Tarantino established these two characters, Rick Dalton and
Cliff Booth.
The other guy, I'm sorry, Brad Pitt and Leo, the way he established their characters, there was something you knew that it didn't come from a place of hatred. That they could be characters who are kind of ignorant at moments. That's why it worked. It's something ignorant to say, but it's not something racist to say. it's still ignorant and shouldn't, but like it worked with the character, you know?
Right.
So it's like there was something very endearing about it because we knew how Rick Dalton or whatever, I can't say his name. Rick Dalton was established as a man whose heart is very sensitive, you know, and he needs his buddy. He needs his, you know, second in command, you know, for lack of a better word. So
he needs that pal to reinforce him, to be like, oh, everything's okay. You know, you're gonna be all right.
Yeah, exactly. So
I have to ask this of you because last I checked, you are indeed a lady.
Shut up.
And
well,
we must talk about this, and that is how Tarantino has changed as a filmmaker. Now, when it comes to women, and that is in Reservoir Dogs, there are only if there are any women that do have any speaking lines in Reservoir Dogs, it's like maybe one or two lines of dialogue. I can't recall if the waitress did. The characters like that.
Oh,
yeah. And then you have in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood where you have more women speaking roles. And I know that one controversy.
Not only speaking role, word like they're the reason why the movie was creepy.
Not just that, but also the reason why the film gave it its soul, and Margot Robbie's Sharon Tate, which the controversy came from Sharon Tate was that, you know, where Tarantino refused to answer that question. I think he said he rejected the question about the lack of dialogue with Sharon Tate. Why is it that all these other characters have more dialogue, but Sharon Tate doesn't?
See, if you hear that before watching the movie, you might be like, what the fuck? What the hell? Why doesn't she have more lines? Why doesn't this...
Yeah, she's an Oscar-nominated actress. Right? She's been in films that made money.
Guys, her presence in the film is so beautiful. Like, and mind you, I don't know that much about Sharon Tate. I do know the tragedy that happened and obviously all that stuff. And so it's like, you know, my heart goes out to the family still. But it was so beautiful, and it was like an angel every time she came. Like this beautiful soul within this whole crazy world, you know? And every time she was on the screen, you saw purity.
Yeah.
You know? And she was in the movie for the right amount of time to show that even though this world is crazy and cruel and just flat out batshit insane, there's some purity and there's some beautifulness in this world.
Yeah.
And that's what she embodied. And it was, I could not see a better ode to someone than the way Tarantino gave one to Sharon Tate in this movie.
Yeah. And the thing is, when you were saying that, just thinking, I was reflecting on the female characters in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and the differences between Sharon Tate and the members of the Manson family. And that is how Tarantino is showing that wouldn't the world be a much better place if we had more people like Sharon and less people like the Manson family? Like to promote like true like love and to care for one another, and as opposed to what occurred with the Manson family. I mean, she is
completely. It's weird. It's funny that you bring that up because in the movie, throughout the whole film, we get glimpses of the Mansons of cult, pretty much, you know. But
we only get one scene of Charlie.
Allegedly Charlie. No, in the movie they said it was Charlie.
We'll tell you what it is, and that is it is Charles Manson. But this is based off of something that really happened. And the story goes is that Charles Manson did go to the house looking for somebody, but that person moved on. But he didn't believe it.
Yeah,
and that's what allegedly happened. Now there's some stories like, oh, maybe that was Charlie, or maybe it wasn't. Tarantino went with that actually being Charles Manson there, and that's the only scene he's there. But we know it's him. And it creates this, you know, really spooky factor that he isn't there in any other scene in the film, but he is there. You do
his presence is there. You get an introduction to the cult, like sprinkled here and there until there's the big scene at Spawn's Ranch. But so throughout the film, these people from the cult are pretty much called hippies. They were called hippies, right? But then because
that misunderstanding, they were not true hippies.
They were not true hippies.
Hippie was the one who picked up the one other hippie and went to go see a movie about her, a movie featuring her in it.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I was going to say. Like, it was a very beautiful, and I don't mean beautiful as in like visually beautiful, but the way it was done, a great contrast of what people say is one thing, but it really isn't. Like these guys, like do like the cult is pretty much what they think hippies are, but the true hippie was Sharon Tate.
Yeah.
And the way that she was portrayed, like one of my favorite scenes that Sharon Tate, like that Margot Robbie did, was when she went to the theater to see herself in a movie, right? So like she's like, oh, that's me. How much is it if I'm in the movie? And they're like, oh, you're really in the movie?
Or
like,
can I go see it for free?
Can I see it for free? And like she got, and it's all very sweetly done because. If any other bitch did that, they would be like, what the hell? You conceited ass bitch, you can afford your own fucking movie. But no, this one was really cute. So, like, she goes in the theater and then she puts up her feet. And this is...
Feet fetish!
But
no. Feet, okay.
No, but, like, the reason I want to mention this is because there's two scenes where feet were featured by two different hippies, and the complete contrast was very interesting to me because with Margot Robbie, she sits in the theater, her movie's coming up, her scene's coming up, and she puts her feet up, and the bottom of her feet are dirty, and it's like there was something very sweet about that because, when you think of hippies, you think of, bare feet, just like living earth, man, kind of like touch the ground. Do you feel its vibration? Like, that's what people think of hippies. So you kind of physically see that with, she very well put, but the bottom of her feet are dirty. And then there's the quote unquote hippie that Brad Pitt's character picked up. It's like, oh, do you want a blowjob? That girl.
Yeah.
And she puts her feet up on the window, and it's not on the dashboard. Thank you. And it's you see the bottom of her feet, and they're not really dirty. Like they are like you can see that they've been bruised and the calluses or whatever, but it's not exactly dirty. And for some reason, I don't know why that kind of stuck with me in the sense of like these people, they're being told that they're horrible people that committed crimes, that killed innocent people, are just because they live quote unquote freely does not mean they're hippies,
Yeah.
And then the one true hippie was the one whose life unfortunately was taken away in real life, and it's like she was the most beautiful soul, and I loved how Tarantino showed that with just feet, with his weird obsession with feet. And like, I loved how he was able
Do you want to see my collection? Okay. You want to see on my feet?
But like, I loved how he was able to portray the difference in soul by just the feet. I know you're giving me this weird look, but like when you guys see the movie, you'll see what I mean. There was something very like, even I kind of like perked up like when I saw Sharon Tate with him, and I was like, oh my God, this is so freaking cute. Like I wanted to be her best friend. I really, really did.
Was a little attention to details and such.
Yes.
Like for example, like in Reservoir Dogs, if memory serves, where you see this balloon go flying, and what color is that balloon?
Oh, I don't know.
It's orange.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
Or the other bit where it's just he would drop all these subtle clues where it's let everyone know the traitor was Mr. Orange. And so you do get these little elements and such.
Now I get it. Guys, it barely hit. Okay, I get it. Okay, that's actually pretty smart.
And that's how Tarantino's way of doing it, of showing like, okay, I'm going to show you through the visuals, little hints and such about who it could be.
Side note, when it comes to that, because we'll go back a little bit to, like, we're going to go back to budget right now, because you mentioning that, the fact that he was able to make as much as, like I know, I like the movie Reservoir Dogs, I wouldn't watch it again, but for the movie that it was, did you know the original budget was going to be $30,000?
Yeah.
And like that's insane to me, right? Like it was just him, let me see, it says right here, the 16mm camera, him with his friends.
Well, the producer, Lawrence Bender, was going to be in it too. But But then how unlucky happenstance that Harvey Keitel got the script, and because Keitel wanted to do it, up goes the budget.
To $1.5 million.
Yep.
But even then, like $1.5 million in movie talk, is that really...
It's
the
small.
Best, right?
Oh, like for example, the scene where Mr. Pink needs to escape and he gets the car. It's one of those where like in a normal film production, okay, we're gonna get the rights to film here. We're gonna get everything set up. We're gonna get everything. Okay, all right, and action. Okay, go. All right, let's do it again. Okay, and action. Go. In this case, it's like, all right, we don't have any. We gotta go right now. Okay, and action.
Yeah, and like. Because of the budget,
style.
Because of the budget, and I think we're mentioning the same scene here. The part where Steve Buscemi's character had to steal a car and he shot a woman. They had to wait until the lights were green in order to shoot. So the people around them, not all of them were actors.
Nope.
Like they were literally in traffic. And it's like big production movies would be able to close the whole street down. And then y'all, the people who live in LA, y'all know how much a pain in the butt that is. There's been a few times that I've been stuck in traffic because of that shit, motherfuckers. But anyways, but these guys didn't have the budget for that. They had to literally wait standing on the side of the fucking road until the light turned green so they can run and go get it.
And that's what it goes into, like that common theme with Tarantino, that it was there back in Reservoir Dogs and is still here today.
Mm-hmm.
He loves cinema. That
no matter you can tell.
No matter how big the budget is, no matter how big the cast is, it could be a very small cast like Reservoir Dogs. It could be a gigantic cast like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where you got people like who could have been like the stars in any of their films, like Kurt Russell. They're doing little cameos, or Al Pacino doing little cameos. It's still there where he will go and make his film no matter how he can do it, and he can bring that voice to his. Whether you like his movies or not, that voice is there. I do want to then bring up, and that is, I want to ask you, have you ever seen any ripoffs of Tarantino, or have you noticed how films have changed since Tarantino became a filmmaker? Or what do you think about that?
I mean, I love it. I always love when something hits pop culture in such a way that you know of the existence of that film, even though you've never watched it. Like, I never watched, like, Pulp Fiction, but God, did I know those references.
Like watching Space Jam and seeing Elmer Fudd and Yosemite Sam do, Jules Winfield and Vincent Vega.
Like that, or like the parody of like the poster, I don't know why one of the like the biggest like ones that always stick to memories, like when I went to California Adventure and the Miss Piggy.
Yes.
You know what I'm talking about? Miss Piggy, she had her own little poster of Pulp Fiction. Was it Pork Fiction? I can't remember what it was. It was hilarious. But like by that time, I never saw Pulp Fiction, but I knew of the movie.
Yeah.
So it's like, it was always referenced in movies. It was referenced in TV shows or even music. And like Dance Like, oh no, that was, no, it is Pulp Fiction. Dance Like Uma Thurman. There's like a Fall Out Boy song. Because inspired by that,
And what's so interesting about that is that for you, it would be like when you've never seen Pulp Fiction until you saw it, and then it's like you've already seen the movie because you're that familiar with it.
Yeah.
For me, it was when I finally got around to seeing The Godfather, and everything was clicking for me. Everything felt familiar because it was parodied and satirized so many times, whether it's on Saturday Night Live or even The Simpsons. In fact, thinking about films being referenced so many times, like with like Citizen Kane, the joke was, I think amongst the Simpson writers, is that they've referenced Citizen Kane so many times you could recreate Citizen Kane using Simpsons clips. But Citizen Kane, Citizen Kane, Citizen Kane. But with the influence of Tarantino, I mean, I do have to tell you like some of the negative effects, and I know this is definitely going to leave me very popular amongst the bros. I take a look at a film like The Boondock Saints, which is a big example of being influenced by Tarantino. I don't care for that movie.
I haven't even seen it, so
at all.
I can't even say anything about it.
I don't. But it's a film, I am highly aware that people love that film. And people love and quote the dialogue, and it's got so many uses of profanity, which I have no qualms about whatsoever. But I look at a film like Boondock Saints, and that's how it's, dropping F-bombs like crazy, but there's no fun to it. It's just doing it for the sake of doing it. But then with Pulp Fiction, it feels real. Or in Reservoir Dogs, when they're dropping profanity, it feels natural. Or in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, same thing, because Tarantino knows how tricky in fact, he even mentioned when he won his second Oscar for Django Unchained, and how his dialogue can be very tricky.
Oh, yeah. What, you talking about Tarantino's dialogue?
Yeah, and how he has to cast the right actors and be able to direct them and trust them in such a way where they're able to deliver said dialogue and deliver it convincingly.
It's interesting that you say that, because I was actually looking right here really quick online that I didn't know this, that Tarantino actually, for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, he was writing it as a novel first before he realized that it's better suited as a film script. So it's like, it's kind of interesting to see how even he cares about the story and the dialogue so much that he's like, no, I can't do this as just a novel. Like, we have to have the right people, the right character, the right face, the right tone, the right setting, everything to get the story out there, you know? And I love that. That's actually very interesting because I would imagine that people would have been like, fuck it, I'm going to do the book and the movie. So, you know, I can make millions of dollars, you know? But like, no, he does care about the art. And you can tell that regardless if you like Tarantino or not, you can tell. Sorry, I said that really weird. You can tell that he loves what he's doing. Even if you agree you don't. Like, you cannot not acknowledge that he is an artist.
Yeah.
Which then goes to the whole censorship thing, but whatever, fuck it. I don't care. Like, not right now, not for this one, because I can go on a tangent. But like, I do like that. Regardless of what I think of him, I do respect him for that.
And just ultimately, what I think is fascinating with Reservoir Dogs and comparing the endings of the two films, because they both have big explosions of violence, then followed by these relatively quieter moments between characters and such, where Reservoir Dogs ends on Mr. Orange admitting to Mr. White that he was the rat in the group. And in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where, big spoilers, the Manson family does not go to Sharon Tate's house and murder her. Instead, they go and want to kill Rick Dalton.
The best scene! That was the best thing. I know there was controversy about it.
Oh, yeah.
But, guys, I think the people who were giving shit about it haven't seen the movie. Or, like, actually don't know what the fuck happened. Like, I know that we are trying to make sure that, because we've heard stories of, like, Tarantino and, like, with Uma Thurman, like, that he didn't take care of women in his set and blah, blah, blah. From what I was looking and doing, like, my research with at least the newest film, everything that was said about him could have been further from what I heard before. Like, even the young girl, apparently, like, they're now pen pals, that he took care of her so well. And
she was a scene stealer. She's an actress.
So good.
She plays an actress,
so good.
Or an actor, I should say, along with Rick Dalton in a Western set.
Which, by the way, that whole set, by the way, Luke Perry makes an appearance during that time. I'm not gonna lie, like, I didn't even realize it was Luke Perry. Like, you guys need to just watch it. Just even for just those few scenes alone for that Western TV show that they were doing, it was so well done. And and this is how y'all know that Leonardo DiCaprio is, like, the best actor alive. That he's an actor acting while acting, playing an actor who's acting. Like, it was really, it's like Inception. Like, it was so cool. Like,
but what I was thinking with the ending with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, after that, where how it ends, where it's Rick Dalton finally gets to meet Sharon Tate.
Oh yeah.
And just how it just quietly ends like that, but it ends on a hopeful note.
There's something sweet about it.
Yeah, where it's like the old generation. It's like the old generation and the new generation come together, and there's hopes for somebody like Rick Dalton that he still recognized, because you have these younger, all these hippies and all, but Sharon Tate, they don't care about me. Oh wait, we know you. We know your work.
Yeah, and he got the validation that he's always wanted.
And the weird thing is, I feel that way with Quentin Tarantino and other actors, where, like, Tarantino was known for, like, getting, like, actors, like, maybe they weren't, like, their career was in a downturn, or maybe they weren't as famous as before, like John Travolta, Pam Grier, Robert Forster, David Carradine, that they get all these actors, and he's able to show people again that these people are talented, that they still have something to bring to the table. And that scene of Rick Dalton and the younger man played by Emil Hirsch, who was associate of Sharon Tate, and Sharon Tate herself, you get that sense of Tarantino's affection for those actors, those heroes of his. And I haven't felt that way since Jackie Brown. It's like, and there's like nice compare and contrast between Dogs and Hollywood, where with Dogs it ended on a sadder note where all the characters except one die, and in Hollywood that the bad guys die and the good guys live, and
when
that
we
there's
know
a
in
hopeful
reality
note.
Was different. And let's go back to that scene, because we knew there was some controversy with it, that Tarantino had women be beat up. Well, when I say beat up, they were beat up in the movie. And guys, by the way, I have never seen an audience be so for it. But for good reason, guys. Like, let us not forget that these were,
murderers.
They're portrayed. They were portraying real people who fucking killed real people
Yeah.
and an unborn baby, guys.
Mm-hmm.
I am all for getting that girl's nose smashed in and being eaten by a goddamn pit bull. Like, I am okay with this.
Yeah.
These guys killed people, guys. I don't care if you're a woman or a man or in between. I don't care what you identify as. If you are a murderer and you killed that many people, I would be okay with you being portrayed in a movie by getting eaten by a goddamn pit bull. Like, I don't care. Like, I'm sorry.
Being
No.
the cutest pit bull.
That is such a cute pit bull. That baby was so cute. Oh my god. Anyways, but no, yeah. Like, so let's talk about that scene for a bit, because that's where, from what we were talking about earlier, how he likes to stay in a frame sometimes, and it becomes too gruesome until it becomes like
Funny.
It becomes funny, but then reality hits, and then you just don't know what to fucking feel, but in the best way possible. Like, that was such a roller coaster of a scene that I was laughing, then I had to turn away for a bit, and I grabbed David's arm. I was like, oh shit, nope.
You know, thinking about it is that, as I stated, like how he loves movies, that scene in particular, because I think that is his own way of saying, like, you know what, you did this awful thing, so this is what I'm going to do to you. And he films it in such an over-the-top fashion where it does feel like movie revenge with the blowtorch and the dog, and like how funny it gets. It
kind of reminded me of a
screaming.
comic book esque type of, like,
and how it gets silly too, where she's screaming, and it's like,
that was so funny.
and it's like, it feels that way because he's making them to be fools.
Yes, because I don't care what y'all say, they were fools.
Yeah,
and like it was, like you said, it was so over the top that it kind of took you out of the realism of what was really happening, that these were real people, and it made them into what they were.
So would you say that Reservoir Dogs was more realistic? Well, Once Upon a Time Hollywood? Okay.
And it's weird because Once Upon a Time was extremely realistic until that scene, which kind of made us realize that, oh, we're not really following the true storyline here. Like, it's an ode to what happened and Tarantino, I think he even said so himself, that was his way of actually giving justice for the family. And if y'all didn't know, Sharon Tate's sister actually knew of the film. She gave her blessing. She gave her blessing. She actually gave or loaned Margot Robbie some of Sharon Tate's jewelry for the film. So she's actually wearing some of her stuff.
I would highly recommend that to people, before they go see the film, I would say look up Margot. Sorry, not Margot. You can look her up too because she's wonderful. But
and beautiful.
Look up Sharon Tate, not specifically in regards to the murder. I mean, you can as well, but I would recommend just looking
at
her up. Look at what she liked. Look at what her wardrobe was, or where she lived. Not the murder, not the murder scene. No,
the person, not the tragedy.
Yeah. And that's what's wonderful about it, that they focused, because of that, they showed her. And Tarantino was able to show her, even if she didn't have as many scenes or even as much dialogue as either DiCaprio or Pitt.
But her presence was felt throughout the whole thing. Though.
Exactly.
Like, it was beautiful.
Exactly. And so...
on that note...
it's one of those where, as I wrap it up, I've seen all of Tarantino's films. I definitely have my preferences. I can tell you that there's not one film of his that I don't like. But I will ask you this. Because of this film... I know you've seen a couple others. Are you willing to want to see more of his movies?
I'm actually very interested to see Inglourious Bastards. I really would like to see that film. There's other films that I'm just...
I'm thinking Jackie Brown. I would think you would... And I
know nothing. I literally have no idea what it's about.
And I'd also say Kill Bill. Like, those films in particular.
Kill Bill, I do know about that. For some reason, I just... And again, and I'm still going to watch them, but like, because of... I don't know why what's so polarizing about Tarantino. Well, I do know why it was so polarizing about Tarantino. I was one of those viewers that refused to watch his movies, and one big reason why I refused to watch Kill Bill, and now Once Upon a Time in Hollywood really changed that for me. Now I'm actually very excited to go back to see that, like at least see that movie and Inglourious Bastards and Jackie Brown, and see the influence and see it from a different eye, because I think that's one big thing with a lot of people, that because Tarantino can be a polarizing name, that they go into a movie thinking it's going to be one thing when it really isn't.
Yeah.
Like, have an open mind when you go in, because it's so good. And you will not regret it.
And for those listening, when it comes to Inglourious Bastards, we have a rule on something old, something new, and that is
Rule.
when it comes to new, like what do we consider new? And that is if you were released within 15 years. So it's one of those where if you were released after 2004,
You're on probation.
We still consider you something new. So if you want us to do Inglourious Bastards as something new, and you got something you want us to recommend as told as something old, exactly, give us a recommendation. You could do so at our Twitter handle and our Instagram handle, which is SOSN Podcast.
Yep, something old, something new.
And when it comes to the both movies, Reservoir Dogs and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I think that we are both in agreement, and that is we believe Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is the better of the films, and that it shows in comparing and contrasting his career between his first film and his latest film, how he's grown as a filmmaker,
but also stayed true to himself.
Yeah,
and that's something very impressive because, like, obviously you can't compare. I mean, you can, but like you can't compare like his first movie that had a $1.5 million budget and this one, which was what, 90 million? I think it was 90 million.
90 to 100 million.
Yeah, 90 to 100 million. Like, you can't compare, but there's something that you're like, this is Tarantino, something that has always stayed the same. Like this artist that knows himself, and regardless of what budget he has or who he's working with, which he works with the same people, it seems a lot, he stays true to himself and he stays true to the art.
Yeah, and just when it comes to Tarantino himself, I mean, I think it would be safe to say that when it comes to the filmmakers that emerged from the 90s, that they call those like those film school brats, where it's like, even though he never attended film school, but you had guys like him and Paul Thomas Anderson and Kevin Smith, all these writers, directors who emerged, who basically grew up watching the films of the filmmakers who became popular in the 60s and the 70s, and just how they've come and formed their own voices. He's definitely the most influential of the group. Now, is he the best? That's one of those. That's a topic for another conversation. But
yeah,
we would say that I highly recommend both films. But if you had to choose one, I would definitely give the edge to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where he still stays true to himself, but he has grown so much as a filmmaker and shown that when you give him a budget, he is still the same guy with the same eccentricities, with his talent of not only for a great eye, a great ear, but the ability to direct actors in such a way where you can't believe the notes that they're able to sing.
Yeah, the actors really, honestly, blew it out of the park. Brad Pitt's performance, he hasn't had a performance like this since Fight Club. Like, in my opinion, like, and Fight Club is one of my favorite performances of his. Like, he's so good in that movie, and I didn't see that movie until you again, by the way. But Brad Pitt, I was like, he's back. He's fucking back. Fuck yeah!
and also, once again, Fight Club, that's something old. So if you can think of something new to pair it off with,
Fight Club 2.
To do so.
I don't know. Is there a Fight Club 2? I don't even know. Oh, I hope not. God, no. God, no.
You want to play the Fight Club video game?
No. Oh, God, that's a whole different podcast right
Yes,
there.
it is. It is indeed. So next time, what we are going to do is we are going to go into the horror category.
Ooh, guys, this is going to be a good one.
Which, speaking of which, Tarantino has recently said that if he's able to come up with a horror film, that might be his last film. Maybe he does a horror film. But what we are doing is we're taking a look at classic Americana horror stories, how horror has evolved throughout America, and that is we have the 1982 George Romero and Stephen King pairing of Creepshow, based off of the comic books, the EC comic books, the Tales from the Crypt comic books, inspired by those, and the 2019 Guillermo del Toro produced Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, which is based off of the series of books written by Alvin Schwartz with illustrations by Stephen Gagnon, which are compilations of American folklore, mythology, scary stories. And how do both films take those the idea of a comic book and short stories, and how do they tell them in
the
their
screen
in their
effectively.
narrative adaptations and
Yeah,
such.
yeah, it's gonna be a good one. Oh, I'm so
Yep.
excited for this one.
So until next time, once again, you can always follow us Twitter and Instagram. That's SOSN Podcast, something old, something new. And until next time, this is David.
And this is Salome.
And we're saying ciao.
Adios.